So you might have saw this news recently that the Samsung is having some difficulties right now because of the Galaxy Note 7 is catching on fire. And if this sounds familiar, it's because about a month ago this was happening to them. And they did a whole bunch of like replacement phones and like refund stuff like that. And now the replacement phones are catching on fire and exploding in like people's pockets and like the cup holders of their car. And obviously it's a huge liability and pretty dangerous actually. Like saw some pictures of people got burned from. I don't know if they're like real or not, but it definitely could happen. There's pictures on the phones what it looked like afterward. And now this is just terrible for Samsung because in the quarters leading up to this, they've actually been doing pretty well in their smartphone sales. And now they're having to tell everyone who used it, so if you use a Galaxy Note 7 right now, you should shut it off. But they're telling everyone to stop using them. They're having all retailers stop selling them. And they're actually thinking about just scrapping it all in general and not even trying to fix the problem at this point because they've not failed at it already. And just the cost of having to figure out what the issue is and after all the refunds, it just might not be worth it. And it couldn't come at a worse time with the holiday season coming up because the numbers show that most people will re-up their phones around Christmas time, like holidays. I know I do that all the time. And so this leaves a huge vacuum for Apple and Google. And just obviously everyone think Apple because they're their biggest competitor around the world with smartphones. And in the last, it was yesterday, it came out that their stock's up like 2.1% just in this last week because of this news. Especially the iPhone 7 Plus, they're thinking will be able to really benefit the most because the Galaxy Note 7 bundles like plus size smartphones. And Google might even be able to get into play here. Google hasn't really had any success in the past of getting getting smartphones, into the market very well. But they have like an Android interface on this new phone called Pixel, so they're hoping that they can kind of take some of this money away from Apple and Samsung and really get themselves to become a real player in the marketplace. So it'll be interesting to see over the next couple of months, especially after the holiday season, who kind of comes out on top here. And over to Kevin.
Okay, so the jobs report came out this Friday. So a lot of different good economic information. It kind of like tells you what's going on with the economy now and where it's headed in the future. So the one that came out this Friday is for September. So it comes out the first Friday of every month. One of the really important factors that comes out is the unemployment rate. So when you hear economists or people from the Fed talking about unemployment, they're most likely referring to the U3 unemployment measurement, which is at about 5% right now, which is the natural rate of unemployment, which is designated by the Fed. And it did go up by 0.1%, which isn't really that big of a deal, mainly because participation rate went down a little bit because baby boomers are starting to retire. And it is at the natural rate, so we're not too concerned about that. Another important unemployment statistic that you want to look at is the U6, which takes a lot more data into consideration than just the U3. So U6 does unemployment, underemployed, as well as discouraged workers. So that was at about 9.7, which is relatively high. And you can see from this graph, it's a little difficult to see. U6 is at the top here, and it is still above the pre-recession level, which is kind of worrisome for economists just because it may have some underlying problems that we may see in the future. And you can see that U3 is the third one from the bottom, and that's pretty much at the pre-recession level. So that's good news. Another important factor that comes out, or piece of data that comes out, is the wages. So wages did rise over September, more so than it has in the past 5 or 6 years. We've seen a lot of like tepid growth or like not really great growth when it comes to wages. And usually with like a fall in unemployment rate, you should see wages rise, which we did not see, which is like one of the first times that we've seen that occur. So that was kind of interesting information. But a lot of the jobs that were added in September, there was 156 added. Expected was 176, so it didn't quite meet expectations, but it's still a pretty robust number, which is good. Those jobs economists kind of fear is like the low skill, low wage positions, which aren't really great for economic growth. So there's kind of like a flip side to, there's like good news with this report, but there's also kind of like murky, I'm not really sure where the economy's kind of going news with this report. So as young and upcoming economists, you guys should really look out for information like this because it has a lot of cool facts and statistics and kind of lets you know where we're at and where we're going.
Oh, sorry. What does the 3 of the 6 stand for?
I'm not exactly sure what the number means. It's just like there are 6 different unemployment rates that take into different measures. So U3 is a smaller measure. It kind of only looks at unemployment itself, where U6 is kind of more like takes into more factors. So that's why it's higher than the U3. I'm not exactly. I think it's just a label. It's not really like, oh, U3 has 3 measures, U6 has 6 measures. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Okay.
Hey guys, so this last week, the 2 cutest old guys ever won a Nobel Prize in economics for their work in contract theory. Their names are Ben Holmstrom and Oliver Hart. So Holmstrom took a look at incentives and performance pay in particular. One example of this would be paying CEOs for really good stock performances, and he stated that like you're kind of just paying them for essentially getting lucky, and also doing this would incentivize them to drive growth in the short term, but probably make decisions that might hurt the firm in the long term. Oliver Hart worked pretty extensively with incomplete contracts. He also kind of changed the way that we look at corporations. So we all kind of learned that competition is a really good thing, but he stated or pointed out that in some instances, cooperation amongst firms and even some mergers might be a little bit more efficient. Both men took a look at the government's role with private firms. So it usually is a good thing because private firms can specialize, therefore provide higher quality at a lower cost. But it also incentivizes private firms to cut costs in order to drive their their profit. Excuse me. So that's a little bit about like just summaries of what their work consisted of and their research consisted of. Some examples and cases that they used were Obamacare and doctors being rewarded for their performance, and they observed their incentives. Another thing that they looked at was what was it called? Gig economy jobs. So like Uber and how performance reviews affected those markets. The last thing that I just want to point out is that these guys won a prize of $925,000 for their Nobel Prize. So if anyone has some good ideas for economic research, I highly recommend that you pursue them. And that's it for economics, guys.